And welcome back to another Jag Bros podcast. It has just been the NFL draft. It's an exciting time with 9 new players for the Jaguars and even some undrafted players I'm pretty excited about as well. It's been a pretty good offseason. Trent Baalke's been doing a lot of things, been making a lot of moves. I'm really excited to see what y'all are thinking about it and talk about it. We're going to go ahead and grade some of these draft picks that we got. We'll go through and talk about our projections, biggest rookie impacts, what our projections are for him, his rookie year, overall grades for the entire offseason and draft, and then what's next on the football schedule. But so far, guys, what are y'all thinking about the draft?
I'm thinking, Joey, you drank quite a bit of the Kool-Aid here. Some of these picks I loved, some I did not like at all. Mixed bag to me. I know we're about to give our grades and do some breakdown, but kind of feeling a mixed bag after this draft right now.
Look, this draft will be made or break with the fact of what Brian Thomas Jr. does ultimately. But if you look at it from top to bottom, there's not a whole lot of guys that I feel like are going to even be contributors on the field outside of BT Jr. And so I am very low on this draft. I think this is a really important draft. We highlighted that all through the offseason so far. And to me, it's pretty underwhelming at some key positions as well.
Well, that's a crazy take there because I'm pretty sure the first 3 picks will definitely be playing this year.
Yes, they will be playing. You're right. But are they more rotational guys? Or are they guys that you can count on as starters? I mean, technically, Strange played tight end last year. Yes. But did he actually make a difference compared to a bum you could find on the street? Not a whole lot.
Well, let's do this. We're going to do a little bit different than a lot of draft grades and recap. I know a lot of people kind of go round by round, but we're going to give our just real quick 30-second grades on each player. And then wherever we see a big grade gap, we're going to just dive in on that player, tell you a little bit about them, tell you why we had them graded high or low. So in the first round, the Jaguars took Brian Thomas Jr. I had that as an A-.
I gave Brian Thomas Jr. a B+.
And I gave it a C+, which I've already expressed some of my initial opinions on the first podcast. We will certainly be talking more about Brian Thomas Jr. here in a few minutes. So which brings us to the second round. The second round was Maason Smith, a defensive lineman from LSU. I had that pick as a D.
I had a D as well here for Maason Smith.
And I gave it a C. Yeah, I can definitely go into more detail on why I gave it a higher grade than JT and Jack, but we'll go ahead and move on to the third round. Jarrian Jones, I gave an A.
Yeah, I gave A-.
My favorite player, an A+ here for Jarrian Jones. Then we move into 2 fourth-round selections. Javon Foster, offensive tackle from Missouri. I gave this one a B.
I went ahead and gave it a B+.
B+ as well, which takes us to our third LSU pick in the 4th round. Another defensive lineman, a true nose tackle, Jordan Jefferson. Pretty sure the Jags only scouted that first game of the year, LSU versus FSU. Guys, where do we have him? I have that one as a C-.
I also have it as a C-.
3 for 3, man. And what's cool is we have not shared our grades. Like, this is live reaction. I don't know what y'all grade other than Brian Thomas Jr. As JT said, we did do an episode on that, so go check that out. But 3 for 3, I had this as a C- as well.
Which takes us into the 5th round where we were able to trade back and get another 5th round. So we took 2 players. But I'm going to go ahead and start off with Deontre Prince, who I gave a B to.
At this point, I don't know a lot about him, and it's a guy who's probably not going to see the field much. B- is fine.
Yeah, Prince is a cornerback from Ole Miss. A lot of Jags fans like him from Twitter. I gave him a slightly higher graded a B+ here. And then our other selection in the 5th round was Keelan Robinson, running back, kick returner from University of Texas. This was by far my least favorite selection. I had a straight F here for the Jaguars.
F as well. Made no sense. Just made no sense.
Yep. I also gave it an F.
Which then brings us to the 6th round, a kicker, which, hey, it's nice to know that we're not drafting punters and kickers in the 3rd round anymore. But a kicker out of Arkansas, Cam Little, 6th round, pick number 212. I'm going to give this one an F as well.
I was a little higher. I give it a C plus. I didn't know much about him until I went and watched some videos. And for a 20-year-old, the man's got some swag. I like it.
Yeah, JT, how you gonna be hating on the kicker? We're gonna be carrying like 3 kickers on the roster right now. Obviously, we will only keep one most likely, but I had this as a B. This wasn't an exciting pick.
Hold up.
Yeah.
So this guy's going to be our starter.
Yes, we got rid of Joey Sly. He's already off the team.
I thought we had
Yeah.
another guy too.
Riley
We do.
Patterson.
We brought back Riley Patterson.
Yes, so it is
So
him
technically,
versus
it's
Cam Little.
competition.
I mean, I watched the guy at Arkansas. He was nothing special. Like he
Hey,
missed a lot of
He's
big
just
time
upset
kicks.
because he kicked the game-winning field goal against the Florida Gators.
He did kick the game-winning field goal against the Gators. You are right about that, and that was impressive. But coming
A little
into the
salty
game,
there.
he was like a 75% or so type of guy. He finished around 83%. So he's a fine college kicker. He's nothing special in my opinion. And so this guy better be our starter or else you're essentially cutting a 6th pick in 3 months.
Which brings us to our last pick in the 7th round, which is Miles Cole. And actually one of my favorite projects. I gave it an A.
Yeah, PFF called this the most Trent Baalke selection ever. A tall, long wingspan, hyper athletic. I'll talk a little bit more about him, but it's a 7th round. It's a dart throw. I gave this an A minus. It's worth a shot. I could see him be cut. I could see him be a starter in 2 to 3 years.
I give this a who cares. I mean, he was a 3-star kid coming out of high school, going into college. Most likely he will never see the field. Our 6th and 7th round picks have never been great under Trent.
Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and get into some of these big differences in our picks, and that will bring us to the 2nd round. Maason Smith. A lot of people scratching their heads a little bit on that pick because they think it's a reach. But what was your takes on why you gave it a D, JT and Jack?
I'll start. I mean, look, there's a run on defensive tackles similar to last year with the tight end position, and it felt like we had a little bit of a panic picking a guy who had almost no production in college. He had 8 games of decent production in the first 2 seasons, followed by just an abysmal year last year overall as the defense. And yes, he's returning from an injury, so like you can't hold that to his standard. But LSU in the last 3 or 4 years has not been a very good defensive team. They've been one of the worst run defenses. And so why not just go get Jenkins, the guy that literally goes behind it, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, if you want to go defensive tackle? To me, that was a really head-scratching pick. And a guy who, to me, he's Fatakasi. Maybe you get similar production from him.
No.
Yeah, on the upside, I don't see a difference.
Get out of here with that comparison, please. My word.
So I'll give my formula here for evaluating players. I love the NFL draft. I always have, but this was the first draft I really kind of went in and studied some guys, see what other people are saying on 60, 70, 80 players in this draft. And I really came up with 4 things. This is first ever, worth about 2 cents, my kind of formula for how I evaluate players. So I have 4 Ps. I had potential. What can you do? What's the ceiling for him? Production. What did you show us in college? Play style. Is this going to be a good fit for what the Jaguars want? And then progression. Did you improve over your college career? And Maason Smith, to me, is what a lot of the Jaguars draft is. It is very, very high on potential, is decently high on play style, but super low on production, super low on progression. At the end of the day, Maason Smith, his best football was in 2021. So you're 3 years removed from that. It's a big time project in a top 50 spot where my 2 biggest frustrations was, number 1, not trading up. You had all day. You knew that there was a ton of hyper talented 1st round graded guys on defense. Hey, Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry go less than 10 picks before the Jaguars, and there's 6 trade ups before the Jaguars select this pick. And so that's part of the reason I put this at a D. Honestly, I almost went an F here, and I know Jaguars fans are going to be mad because they love the potential. They love the upside, but to miss out on a clear-cut 1st round selection, because we just can't pull off another trade, especially when we had already traded back, got some more draft capital. That was my biggest frustration with this pick. And then the second thing was going to be that he just didn't have much production. He was off the field completely 2022. 2023 was weak, and people are saying, okay, now he's getting back. But that concerns me that your best football is 3 years ago.
And Jack, didn't you say he only had like 8 tackles through 12 games?
Yeah, nine solo tackles, so he had some more combined. And just to put that in perspective, Jerzon Newton, who also went same position in the second round, a potential guy would have loved to trade up, he had 8.5 sacks. So he had a half less sack than Maason Smith had solo tackles. So I was not high on this pick, but he could easily prove me wrong because he is a freak and he has off the charts potential. It's just a huge gamble in a top 50 selection that I don't love. But Joey, I know you're higher on this, so give us the upside. Why do you like this pick a little bit more than us? What do you think could happen with Maason Smith?
Of course. And I didn't take into effect not trading up. If I did, it would have been a lower grade because I absolutely did want to trade up for Cooper DeJean or Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think both of them were awesome targets, first round guys that we could have traded up for. But I'm not sure how Trent Baalke can never get it done. I don't know if he's just really slow at negotiating. Every negotiation seems to take months for Trent, and with trading up, you got to make a quick decision, or maybe he's just like aggressively trying to always undercut people. I heard a lot of them wanted the next year third, and Trent Baalke didn't want to trade it. I would have pulled the trigger on it, but that's just me. Otherwise, I did evaluate Maason Smith, and this is a huge gamble. I think his ceiling is super high. He reminds me of the Simmons D tackle at Tennessee Titans, who also came out of college with a ton of injuries. Everyone was very skeptical of how he's going to play in the NFL, and it's been a huge win for the Tennessee Titans. He's easily their best D tackle, easily almost the best person on that defense. And it's the same thing with Maason Smith. If he hits, it's going to be incredible. I think he could be a really heart and soul of the defensive line. He can learn under Eric Armstead and Josh Allen. He already talked about going ahead and trying to teach Maason Smith and taking him under his wing. He did have a high of 23 quarterback pressures last year, 7th among SEC D tackles, which is very good. He is also a freakishly tall and big guy, 6'5", 306, just looks like an absolute monster and dominates at times and also disappears at times. So if Eric Armstead and Josh Allen are able to coach him up and get him ready, I do think it could be a huge hit. But if he misses, then it's going to be a huge miss. So that's why I have it right in the middle at a C.
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe that's the upside and kind of what Jack was saying in the sense of his potential. But you're talking about Jeffrey Simmons from the Tennessee Titans. If you look at his production in college, the dude had almost 60 tackles, 7 sacks in his career. He made plays on Mississippi State, and Mississippi State at that time was a pretty decent defense. And so like those are some of the things that I would say like, okay, yeah, maybe if you just look at it from a purely athletic perspective, he could be, but he's not shown any of that potential. And you're stepping up in class. To me, I don't see Maason Smith making an impact at all on the 2024 season. Yes, he may get some playing time, but I don't think all of a sudden you're saying like, oh man, we need to start game planning for him on the other side of the ball. Whereas if you did get a Cooper DeJean, if you did get a McKinstry, you got somebody that you know is a bona fide starter and a guy who could develop into a guy who is a super consistent above average starter for you at a key position on defense. Whereas it feels like, at least for the first year or two, we have a developmental project again inside a top 50 pick for Trent Baalke.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think he's a day one starter. He's going to be rotating in with Hamilton because we don't really know if Hamilton's going to come back to what he used to be. Maybe what he was last year is all that he has left from his injury. I'm not really sure, but I could see him not being impactful, but having big flashy plays that next year. maybe not every game, but all of a sudden one game he comes out and has a huge sack or something. I really see him flashing this next year and then maybe solidifying himself in the next 2 to 3 years.
So what's interesting to me about this pick and then in the fourth round, it was weird to see us go to LSU defensive players, especially when LSU was not very good defensively in 2023. But part of the reason that makes sense is because the Jaguars brought on a new coach on the defensive side of the ball, Matt House, who is defensive coordinator for LSU. So hopefully knows some things that we don't. But at the end of the day, this is a big gamble. This could be, to me, like a chase on pick where you're just kind of counting down the days. Is he going to be cut year 2, year 3, year 4? Or it's a home run pick. This guy has every physical tool you want. Bruce Feldman had him as number 12 in his freak list. He ran almost 20 miles per hour at 6'5", 306. He had a 31-inch vertical, which is probably higher than me at a lot smaller size. But we just haven't seen it in 3 years. If he can come back and be 5-star recruit like he came out of high school, he could be a big-time home run pick, or this could easily be a strikeout for the Jaguars.
I just don't understand. LSU was awful on run defense, and we somehow decided to draft 2 of their defensive linemen and guess what? It's not even the best of the defensive linemen. Perkins is by far the best defensive lineman on their team. Obviously, he was not available in the draft this year. But guess what? Guess what LSU's rushing stats were? What were they ranked in college football last year? Any guesses, guys?
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, pretty bad. It was 90th in average rushing yards per game and then 85th in yards per attempt. It's terrible. I mean, it's one of the worst in the SEC. It's one of the worst like that you see. It's actually worse than Florida's, shockingly enough, considering how terrible they were. And so I don't understand.
One thing to that, though, is a lot of that is coaching scheme, and I don't think it was really the players, because if you go and look at them individually, they were actually had really talented defensive players, but they just didn't play well as a team. Their schemes were terrible.
The problem with that, Joey, is that we just brought on their defensive coordinator, Matt House, to be our linebacker coach. So if it is coaching and scheme, that's not necessarily a very good thing, considering he is going to be an integral part of the Jaguars defensive coaching staff.
Yeah, but he's not going to be coming up with the schemes or anything. He's going to be putting Ryan Nielsen's scheme into action. So he's not having to come up with anything or do anything like that. He's only coaching the inside linebackers, who is Foye Oluokun, who I trust him to coach himself.
So we have the LSU coach and the LSU defensive players, and we're hoping that something other than the LSU results produce.
He's not the defensive coordinator for the Jaguars.
I understand that.
I would be really worried, but I believe in Ryan Nielsen. Every player that's played with him have raved about him. A lot of people wanted him to be a head coach. I'm really high on Ryan Nielsen. He loves the defensive tackles, and if he wanted these defensive tackles, then I trust him.
Everybody raves about Billy Napier too, and his production's been horrible on the field. So
I mean, I don't think anyone raves about him anymore.
Every single person's ever played for him, just like Ryan Nielsen. Now, I'm not saying, look, like at the end of the day, here's the situation. We got guys, to your point, that are athletic, that have the ability to be developed and coached. And if Ryan Nielsen is the guy that can coach these guys and develop them and put them in a position to win, great. But a lot of the picks that we just made, I just don't see making an impact.
Well, let's get to a person that I believe will be making an impact day one, and that is our third-round corner, Jarrian Jones, a guy who seems to absolutely love the Jags. I loved the call that he had with Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke when they accepted him. You could hear him crying how happy he was. This was one of the first times a draft pick I thought was a absolute Jags fan and loved being picked by them. And I love this pick. I think he's our day one starter at slot corner.
Yeah, I'm huge on Jones. I'm a Florida State fan, so watched him play a ton. He was actually the guy that I was texting and predicting would be our selection and hoping for. What he did for Florida State was incredible. And yeah, Joey, I love the fact that he's a Jaguars fan too. He is one of the biggest Maurice Jones-Drew fans out there, which is so cool. He was talking all about just his as a kid watching MJD run over people, knock people over blocking. He's also a big fan of Jalen Ramsey, who is a big-time Florida State defensive back. And his stats at Florida State are just crazy. 0 touchdowns allowed in the last 2 seasons. Starting every game, 2022 on the outside, 2023 in the slot. So he's got good versatility. And Florida State played tough teams, tough receivers. They played LSU twice with 2 first-round selections in this past draft. They played, of course, in the ACC as well as UF. And so for him to put up those numbers, I think the sky is the limit. And this is one of my favorite selections. This is my favorite draft pick for the Jaguars here. I graded as an A+. I view him a lot as Antonio Johnson, as in, I don't know if he's going to be a week 1 starter, but I think he will find himself in the starting lineup either towards the end of this season or certainly 2025.
Yeah, the Antonio Johnson comp is an interesting one in the sense that he could play inside, he could play outside. Jack, I think that was one of the things you were texting us is like, hey, I've got a bold prediction. I'm pretty sure he can play very well outside. He fits the mold in the scheme that Ryan wants to do with more press man. He's fast. I like this pick a lot. I think he will see the field faster than Antonio Johnson. And I don't want to call my shot and say he'll be on the slot, but I think they're going to find a way to get him on the field. So as hard as I have been about some of the other picks, I do agree with you, Joey. I think he will be a starter, and he to me is a great pick in the 3rd round to be a guy who could be that average to above average at the position with even potentially higher ceiling than that. Like, why did he fall to the 3rd round, Jack? Like, we're hyping him up. What's the knock against him?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a couple of things. So number one, he's a little bit older, so he'll be a 23-year-old rookie, which I don't care if you can ball out and play and give us production for the next 4 or 5 years, and then we can figure out whether or not you extend him or not. That's a great problem. The Jaguars, other than Josh Allen, we've hardly ever extended a draft pick. So the other knock is the fact that he would just be a slot corner. And that's legitimate. He played this year better in the slot than outside in 2022. I view that more as just progression overall as a player, but typically you don't see slot corners go higher than about round 3. So I think that's why he would fall to round 3. And this was also a stacked cornerback class, and this was just a draft where you saw defensive players fall. I mean, the draft smashed the record for offensive players taking the first 14, 15 picks in a row. So I actually like him a lot more as honestly a round 2 grade. Again, I think he's a much better player in the short term and in the long term than a guy like Maason Smith, who goes top 50.
That's an excellent point. A lot of these 3rd round defenders could be a 2nd round defender in other years. And I think one of the folks that college football fans will remember is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, CJ Johnson at Florida. He was that nickel position. He played lockdown, and he's had a nice career now in the NFL playing with the Saints and the Eagles. And he was a 4th round pick. So he's played well in the NFL. He was actually the interception co-leader in 2022. He was on the all-rookie team. So if we could get some sort of similar type of production from our 3rd round pick, that'd be great.
Yeah, I see him being a absolute fan favorite. I didn't even know how freakishly good he was until I looked him up. And he's about 6'1", 190 pounds, good size for a DB. Ran a 4.38 40 and had a 39.5-inch vert, which is really high. So I was really impressed by everything that I read about the guy. I too was surprised that he wasn't ranked a higher cornerback. I guess slot corner, as you said, just kind of pushed him down. But he did play outside a couple years ago at Florida State. And the reason they moved him inside is because they believed that his football mind was more set up for the inside because he can track that ball a little bit better and was just very knowledgeable at the slot position, because it takes a lot more than just skill. It takes a lot of football brain power and everything, knowing where the slot is in the motion and all of that.
Let's talk about Brian Thomas now. Somebody we broke down more extensively in the first episode, the immediate reactions. We've now had a couple of days to digest where he's at. I obviously have been lower. You guys were higher. The other news that just broke is we did release Zay Jones yesterday, so our receiving room got smaller. It's pretty clear now that Brian Thomas Jr. will be on the field in those three wide receiver sets at minimum. And so now that you've had a few days to digest, where are you guys at on him? You guys were both high. I was lower. Any changes in your initial reaction?
I'm actually higher than I was at first.
Let's go.
Just because I do think that he fits our scheme to a T. The way that we want to go vertical and have a high raid, air raid, passing offense. It just
air raid passing offense? Press Taylor? What?
We had ranked in the top 10 in every aspect of plus 20-yard throws and completions and all that, and even with all the Calvin Ridley drops. So I absolutely think it fits to a T because we wanted to go deep. So now you have a 6'4" guy who can run crazy. He separates really well from the defenders. I understand it was college, but I do think that he'll be able to separate with that 4.33 speed that he has. And then you have Gabe Davis, who is also a super tall 6'3" kind of wide receiver, but a little slower, runs like a 4.5. So you have two guys that can go up with it, one fast, one slower. But Gabe Davis is a much bigger body. He can block very well. And then you have your slot guy, who's also extremely fast, under 6 feet. But we saw him run in that touchdown last year where he just flew by everyone on the defense, seeing Christian Kirk. And then you just have a reliable tight end in Evan Ingram. Anytime you need that 5-6 yards, he's the man to go to. That's why he had over 100 receptions last year. He's just Mr. Reliable. And I just love what the offense is going to look like. We actually can fit these players into what they wanted to do, because last year they wanted to do this and you had all wide receivers 6 foot and under. And you just could tell they throw these fades and you're going up against a corner who's the exact same size and you don't have any sort of advantage going up against them. But now you got 6'3" and runs like the Dickens. You got 6'3" and is actually big and tall and can push off. And then you have your slot. So I love the way the offense is panning out.
So is he better than Calvin Ridley?
Which I'm glad you asked that, JT, because I wanted to introduce something new we've texted about a little bit, and I feel like this would be a fun time to drop this, a new feature to the Jag Bros. It's going to be a fun way to keep track of who gets the calls right, and especially in the season, we'll be able to have a ton of fun with this. But we're calling this the Jag Bro Bets. So we're not betting any money, just betting points, just for bragging rights. So first, Jag Bros Bet. And you can either bet 100 points or double down for 200 points. Last year, the number 4 rookie wide receiver in terms of receiving yards was Zay Flowers at 858 yards. Are you betting that Brian Thomas Jr. will go over 858 yards or under 858 yards?
Easy. Under 200 points.
Double down by JT. Joey, what you going to do?
I'm going to go under as well, but only at 100. I think he's going to be more of a red zone guy than a lot of yardage. I think he's going to have big plays, but not as many receptions.
Hold up. You're sitting here telling me that you're even higher on him, that he's just as good and potentially more productive than Calvin Ridley, who, oh, by the way, just did 1,100 yards for us. And now you're taking under 850, who... If that's the case, then maybe we should have picked a different wide receiver at the 4th spot.
No, I don't think any wide receiver would have gotten over 800 yards because you have Kirk, you have Gabe Davis, and you have Evan Ingram. All of them are going to have the high percentage yardage. They're going to be the ones catching it over the middle of the field. And then you get to the red zone and you throw it to the guy that had 17 touchdowns in one season. That's what I'm thinking.
JT, you're forgetting that Joey is president of the Gabe Davis fan club, so he's probably getting, I don't know, 1,500 yards this year.
I can't have everyone over 1,000 yards.
Yeah, and for those that missed that, Joey has been driving the Gabe Davis fan club bus. So if you see the interactions on Twitter where it's very pro Gabe Davis, the chances are it's probably Joey tweeting those.
Yes, I do believe Gabe Davis is about to have a breakout 2024 season, and he will prove all the haters wrong.
Over under yards for Gabe Davis, please, Joey.
Oh, way over 850 or whatever the number was.
Way
Double
over
down
850 would be way over the production he's ever had in Buffalo. So that'll be
That's
fun
fine.
to watch.
I put my 200 points.
So Joey's got 300 points on the line. I'm not going to go Gabe Davis here. Brian Thomas Jr., I actually like this one a lot because this is right around where I think he'll be. And because I'm the highest on Brian Thomas Jr., I'm going to take the over, but only for 100 points. Because Brian Thomas, like a lot of these draft picks, is off the charts potential, not as high on production yet. He was a one-hit wonder. I think he can eventually year 2, year 3, year 4 become a guy that's over 1,000 yards, maybe double-digit receiving touchdowns. But I do think he will have some hot games and some cold games in his rookie year. So I'm going to take over, but only with 100 points.
Yeah, and look, I've been negative on Brian Thomas Jr. I'm not saying that he's going to be a bust. I'm not saying that he's not going to play well. I think he's too fast and has too much raw talent to just completely fade into obscurity right off the bat. To me, I just don't see him as a true number wide receiver one. I don't see him as having the same ceiling that a Calvin Ridley could have, but I could be wrong. And that's what we'll find out. Joey, you bring up some good points about, hey, the offensive scheme that Press Taylor seems to want to run, it could fit better for his potential. I mean, I don't really see a lot of air raid concepts if you just think about it from that perspective in his play calling, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe he could just keep running that slot fade and be able to take advantage of slower corners.
I think there'll be a lot more deeper passes too with this offensive line. I think Luke Fortner was really hindering some of the pass concepts.
Yeah, but the thing about the NFL right now is they love playing too high or three highest shell, forcing you to take underneath stuff. It's not the NFL. You look at Patrick Mahomes, you look at all these other quarterbacks. It's not that they don't have the time to throw the ball downfield. They do. It's just people aren't open because you can have you'd run a 4.0 and burn somebody off the line. But guess what? If the safety already has 30 yards or 20 yards and like is flooding your area, you're not going to beat him off the jump. And so it's like it's the NFL is not where you can just run them down the sideline all the time like you could with Jimmy Smith or Keenan McCardell 20 years ago.
Yeah, I'm not saying you throw a straight or a fade the entire time. I'm talking more like middle post for 25 yards where
when was the last time Press
safety.
Taylor called a play where it actually went over the middle of the field?
I understand. As I said, I really think the inside of the offensive line hindered that. When you have a center that was starting 2 yards behind everybody else, it hurts the guards and it allowed defensive tackles to be in Trevor's face, making it almost impossible to throw it over the middle if you have a 6'6" nose tackle with his hands up. And so you had to throw it outside.
I'll give one final thought on Brian Thomas Jr. Steve Smith Sr., who has been all about, obviously played at a very, very high level wide receivers. He's all about the draft, all about wide receiver breakdowns. He is a big fan of Brian Thomas Jr. So for those who, are like, hey, what's the bull case? Steve Smith had him as wide receiver 4 as well. But there's many people. ESPN only has him at about 650 yards and 4 touchdowns projected wise. So it's going to be interesting to see. And we got our first Jag Bros Bet on Brian Thomas Jr. But Joey, you were hitting on offensive line. That was certainly a big need. And so in the 4th round, we go offensive tackle Javon Foster, left tackle out of Mizzou. And I think most of us, do we all have around a B plus, B minus for him?
Yes.
I give him a B plus. I think JT gave him a B plus, and I don't remember what you gave him, Jack.
I had a solid B here.
Okay, yeah. So we all had him the same. I did a little research on him. Isn't anything flashy, but was just a super solid offensive tackle. He can also play offensive guard with the body he's got, 6'5", 319 pounds, was first team SEC guy. So like just really solid, but just wasn't kind of like a freak like some of those early on guys, JC Latham and Mims, who are just absolute monsters, but a really solid guy that you can kind of plug and play anywhere.
The upside is you have somebody that you could get for cheap to replace Cam Robinson. The most likely case scenario is you have a guy who is serviceable in a pinch or because of injuries, etc.
Yeah, that's interesting. I view this more as a replacement long term of Walker Little. Both those guys, Cam and Walker Little, this is their final year of their contract. Doug Peterson and Baalke both talked about Foster as a swing tackle because he did play right tackle at Missouri as well. He's actually one of the outliers to this draft because he's not super high on potential to me. He's actually higher on performance, started 41 games for Missouri, very good run blocker, improved at pass blocking. PFF had him last year at an 84.2, two-time captain for Mizzou. So this is not a home run pick. This is a solid single. He's a guy that should be very solid as a second stringer with potential of becoming a solid starter in year 2, 3, 4.
Boy, replacing our second pick, or sorry, replacing our 34th pick, 33rd pick overall with Walker Little, with a guy you got that's serviceable in the 4th round. Another frustrating pick where, oh, by the way, Walker Little did not have a ton of production in college either, was also injured at times. His measurables were great. I think he had one of the longest reaches in the draft that year. And whether it's because of opportunity or injury or folks in front of him, he's just not been a guy who's been impactful in that 2nd round for us over the years.
No, yeah, Walker Little has definitely been a bit of a disappointment. I also think he's fared fairly well when he's gotten in, but just never flashed very much, and just struggled to solidify himself a starting role. So he's just always only been that swing tackle, and it's kind of hard what money, depending on he wants, re-signing someone who's just going to possibly be a swing tackle and never a starter.
Those are the deep dives that we'll go through. Obviously, there's several other picks we had in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, as well as some of the guys we picked up undrafted. Anybody else you guys want to spend a couple minutes talking about with the best of the rest?
Yeah, I did want to bring up one guy. We didn't draft him. He was an undrafted free agent pickup, but really liked this Zay Jones from Oregon, a huge dude at 345 pounds and 6'6", offensive guard who, I mean, could become an actual just behemoth of a guard if he pans out. If not, we didn't draft him, not a big deal. But if he does pan out, that could be a big, big guy for Trevor Lawrence protecting him.
Yeah, on the defensive line, I know you were high on him too, Joey. Miles Cole, this was our final draft selection. He's just an interesting dude. He's a 24-year-old project, which you don't typically hear that phrase a lot, but he's 6'6", 278, and at the combine, he put up a 9.96 RAS, relative athletic score, which is the 8th highest of an edge rusher, not in this draft class, the 8th highest in NFL combine history since 1987. So he is an incredible athlete, an unreal athlete, but he has almost zero production, 6 seasons of college football with only 4.5 sacks. So I would not be shocked to see this guy get cut. And I would not be shocked if Ryan Nielsen as a D-line specialist could find a diamond in the rough here in the 7th round. But I will also say this was one of the disappointing things of the draft, that we waited till the 7th round to go edge rusher.
100% agree on that. I would have loved to have taken Dallas Turner initially. Like, it's still a huge question mark at any type of depth. If you don't go that veteran guy like a Jadeveon Clowney in the free agency, you still only have 2 guys. What happens if Josh Allen gets hurt? The amount of pass rush and sack, we could end up with 25 sacks total as a team if Josh Allen gets hurt.
Yeah, the edge depth is definitely sad. I did want to see us go. I wasn't wanting an edge guy in the 1st round, but definitely was looking at it, maybe 3rd or one of those 2 4ths. But yeah, they decided to go 7th round. I do want to talk a little bit about Miles Cole because he was my big favorite project guy. He's all athleticism. He just needs to be coached. Watching him, some tape on him, the arm tackles, he's really quick and can blow up the offensive line, but just doesn't know quite what to do. So if he's coachable and really learns from Josh Allen and from Ryan Nielsen and can learn how to be an edge guy and train up all that athleticism that he has, he could be an incredible steal in the 7th round.
Well, with that, let's give our overall grade. Moment of truth. What is the overall grade you are giving for the Jacksonville Jaguars for Trent Baalke and his squad for the 2024 NFL Draft?
C-. I've said it over and over and over again. Not enough true talent that can make an impact in 2024 in this draft class, in my opinion.
I calculated all my grades, gave all my letter grades a percentage, calculated them all up, divided them by 9, and got an 80.111111. So I gave it a B minus. I really think that their kick returner pick brought them down a lot for me. Made no sense. You sign a free agent returner and you already have Parker Washington, who's a really good returner. So why do you need a third returner? Just makes no sense. But heaven forbid we go a draft without drafting a running back.
That's true. I looked that up. Trent Baalke's had 10 drafts and has drafted 10 running backs.
And he picks him up in the free agency too.
Yeah, someone needs to tell this man that the NFL is not moving towards more and more running backs. Out of curiosity, Joey, what was your percentage grade for Keelan Robinson?
I gave it a 50, just straight F.
Oof. Yeah, I would probably be. I definitely gave that one an F. So if I averaged out all the picks, I actually would have been at a B minus. But I can't help but give this draft a C plus because of a lot of what you said, JT. Going into this draft, I thought the Jaguars would be in a more win now approach, and every move was banking on potential. Every move is more of a project. Every move is more of a guy that's going to hopefully have an impact 2-3 years. And even the Brian Thomas Jr. trade, we get 2 selections, pretty decent selections in the 2025 draft class, which to me, I would think you would do the opposite. If you're trying to win now, you would use some of that future draft capital. So I think the one good thing, if you're a Jaguars fan that doesn't love this draft pick, if this doesn't pan out, at least the future GM in 2025 will have a lot of draft capital to work with 9 picks already.
You hope, but Shad Khan is the slowest guy ever to make any type of moves at that position, particularly. And look, all of us are overly optimistic about the Jaguars all the time. All of us are happy to drink the Kool-Aid. All of us want us to win and win now and win aggressively. So like when we're coming out here negative, this is against who we typically are. And so the fact that we're all in the kind of C-ish range is concerning, considering we're the ones on the optimistic side of the scale here.
Definitely think the draft could have been better. I think it was better than last year's. Like, we actually took things of need. We needed a nose tackle. I thought he was a huge reach at 4, but the 4th round, Jordan Jefferson. I mean, we got 2 corners, which we needed. Would have taken him a little earlier than the 3rd and the 5th, but he did touch on all of the needs pretty much, other than edge at the very end, but he did touch it. Whereas last year, I mean, going tight end, going running back in the 3rd, like there was a lot of luxury picks where we didn't even need anything at that position. So at least he went for needs this year. I think he could have done better on the needs, but that's why I gave it a B minus. He did address needs.
Weird thing is the Jaguars are over here sitting with the 3rd most cap space. So it's just a weird position for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I feel like Baalke should be fighting for his job after the abysmal collapse in 2023, after we saw some people get fired from the disappointing season. So it's just bizarre that we're sitting here with a ton of cap space, a lot of draft picks that we're kind of hoping that will pan out in year 2, 3, 4. And we're getting extra draft capital in 2025. So a lot of things that to me just don't add up right now for a team that I think should be hungry.
We're not hungry. You know who is hungry? Look at the Texans. They're over there trading up. They're over there making huge splash signings in the free agency. They want to win. They want to win now. They probably go 4 deep right now at receiver. Now they may cut one of them, but like they are in a position where they are going all in all the time. And I love the strategy that they're deploying. And they're like, you know what? We either hit it big or we're going to have to reset in a couple of years. And at this point, it feels like Jacksonville has already lost the mantle of the team to beat in the AFC South, only holding that position for less than a year.
Whoa. I don't know about this whole we're not ready to win and we're not hungry. I mean, we had a huge free agency offseason when we didn't have that much money to begin with. I thought we did actually go in on a lot of players, signing Gabe Davis, signing Mitch Morse, signing Armstead. Those are all huge, pretty splashy players right there. And then, yes, we didn't trade up in the draft, but I mean, he's never really done that, and it doesn't seem like he's maybe capable of doing that. I don't think that he didn't try. I just think his negotiation tactics and everything prevent him from being able to move forward. I do think we are trying to win and are hungry, but also to rain on y'all's parade, Trent Baalke's job is not on the hot seat, unfortunately.
Yep.
He's gone 9-8 twice, which has never happened in the years that Shad Khan has been there. So that's a plus. He's gotten us to the playoffs once, got a playoff win. Yes, he doesn't draft the greatest, but he is pretty decent in the free agency market. I just don't think his spot is as hot as a lot of the fans want it to be. It would take a pretty dismal year next year for him to lose his job. I think if they went like under 6 wins, it's a possibility he would be fired, but his seat's a lot more secure than you think. A show of that is you don't keep those next year draft picks if you're not pretty sure that you're going to have your job next year.
Oh, he's feeling confident. But if this team underperforms, it's going to be either Doug Peterson, who on his resume has a Super Bowl victory, or it's going to be Baalke, who really doesn't have much on his resume. Going to the playoffs once is not all that exciting for a resume of being a GM for 10 years.
Well, yeah, but with a team that doesn't do it that often, it is kind of exciting, especially someone the owner has never had back-to-back winning seasons. I think he is a little more, his bar's lower than maybe the fans' bar.
Well, look, we could go back and forth. We're way over time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this deep dive analysis of a lot of the Jaguars picks. Maybe it's the first time you're starting to hear some initial feedback for these guys. And so we're going to continue to offer some podcasts as we go throughout this throughout the summer. We'll probably continue to pick up as we get into the months of July and August. One of the next big things on our radar is the NFL schedule that will be dropping here soon. Maybe we do a quick hitter on the schedule and what we think about that and some initial wins and losses projections. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Please follow us on social media, on Twitter, on YouTube, on some of the other channels that we are producing information. Give us 5-star reviews on Apple to continue to help our algorithms. And hey, look, we passed the 1,000 people mark on Twitter, which is exciting. We announced that last episode. So guys, continue to make the Jag Bros name known as we sign off one more time. Do